And this is Interface on SABC3 with me, Tembi Samachele. Good evening to you and a warm welcome. Young people in South Africa are hopeless. They are lethargic, they're uninvolved, and they're totally uninspired. Well, that's the image that's dominating the headlines when it comes to South African youth. Well, tonight on Interface, on the second Sunday of Youth Month, we introduce you to three dynamic youngsters who are doing amazing things in their respective fields. But before we do that, let's take a look at this insert compiled by Nokuthula Mdlalos.
Young people in South Africa are sometimes dubbed the lost generation, owing to many challenges facing them and the sometimes unconventional ways in which they cope with poverty, joblessness, and other socio-economic issues. Unlike the youth of 1976 who took to the streets to challenge and face the might of a repressive apartheid system, crime, HIV, AIDS, teenage pregnancy, and other social ills have prompted authorities to find ways to engage young people, like the ill-fated Moral Regeneration Campaign and other projects aimed at raising awareness in an effort to channel young people to help them address challenges positively. While many have only condemned and judged these leaders of tomorrow instead of steering them on the path of self-actualization and responsible living, the Umuzi Photo Club is creating a space for young people to articulate their challenges by engaging in nation-building activities. The three-year-old NGO, established by a group of friends from outside Africa, has managed to unearth the passion these young people have for their communities.
The main focus is to work with young people and to give them something that they didn't have available to them at the schools, at their public schools, which was an opportunity to do something in the art space. But photography is an extremely visual, media, and we thought that it could be more than just photography. Photography could be a portal for our students to engage in a dialogue about development issues and to raise awareness. And so that's kind of how we started. And then organically over the past several years, it's transitioned into, okay, so now we're raising awareness, but now what? What should we do about it? So we've also brought into our training program how to be a youth activist. And we've paired up with organizations like Section 27 and Love Life to give our young people an opportunity to not only raise awareness, but to action tangible projects in their communities to help alleviate some of our development issues in South Africa.
Concerned about the number of teenagers who drop out of school to become mothers, this young man found a way of engaging with this.
My mother was a teenage mother, so I really struggled growing up. And another thing in my community is also an issue. A lot of teenagers are falling pregnant, and I really thought that I should speak out about this issue. If no one doesn't, then there's no change that's going to be done with it.
Another one of many challenges in communities is inadequate service delivery, which has also seen the youth taking to the streets, protesting like in Diepsloot as seen here. But this 17-year-old from this same township has decided to use other means to articulate her concerns and raise awareness.
In Diepsloot, there are a lot of shake rather than houses. They are overflowing of rubbish bins, and the community is not clean at all. So we had an exhibition, and the pictures we took were on the wall, and people came and they were asking questions about what's going on, and they wanted to know more. Well, in Diepsloot, that's my community, people prefer to send a message to the parliament by protesting. So me, I was doing it differently through pictures. So people, though they didn't understand much about pictures, but I think it has helped them to be more cool with the work that I'm doing.
So what does being young mean for ambitious Ruzani, who's doing her matric and plans to be a journalist?
Well, it hurts like being a peer or a teenager where your friends are on the street falling pregnant. But to me, it is important because we've got people who fought for freedom in South Africa. So they want to see the new generation being being proud of what they've done.
While Umuzi Photo Club has managed to inspire positive action from the likes of Ruzani and Tebogo, many more such initiatives are needed to ensure that young people are supported while they find themselves and take advantage of our democracy to achieve their goals even under very trying circumstances, to make the future brighter for themselves and for those who will come after them.
Thank you to Nokuthula Mdlalose for that report. And that's really what we're doing tonight on Interface. We're celebrating young people who are doing great things wherever they are. So let's introduce you to our guest tonight. Lwando Xhaso is an associate at Norton Rose Attorneys. Sibusiso Chabalala is a BCom student at the University of the Free State and one of 10 Google visionaries, and he'll tell us more about that. And we're also joined by Siyasanga Gebeda, who is a pupil at St. Andrew's School for Girls and also a member of the Johannesburg Junior Council. Remember that you can also join our discussion by sending your comments to our Facebook page, Interface on SABC3, or you can always send us an SMS as usual to 33726. Welcome to all three of you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Dennis.
We heard in that insert, Lwando, that we as young people are the lost generation. We don't know where we're going. We've lost our campus, even though there are some bright sparks. But as a whole, in the majority, do you think that we are really that lost?
Well, it's quite easy to say that we are. And through the work that I do, I'm a bit more inspired than other people because I've seen debaters, I've seen young people coming to the Constitutional Court, asking great questions and totally interested in what's going on in the country. So I do think you have the exceptions to the rule, but I think it should be the rule that we're active and we're participating in how the country is run. So I think people think we lost because there isn't that one force that we're fighting against. So there's not that one thing we can label and say it's our goal, whereas the youth of 1976 did have, that common enemy, and we haven't found that yet. We can't articulate that just as yet, I think. Yeah.
Look, tell us a little bit about the work that you do and why you became an attorney. At 28 years old, to be a part of an international law firm is no mean feat.
Well, the story is not so, it's not that great how I got to be an attorney, because I think I was 10 and I was watching the O.J. Simpson trial. It's very superficial. So I was watching this trial and Marsha Clark was the prosecutor, and I remember how she looked, and I'm like, I want to look that important one day. I want to wear a suit, go to court. And also have personal influences in my life, people who are attorneys, and I see the work that they do and they've played a positive role in my life, and I'm like, okay, I want to follow in their footsteps. And I just did law, and it just happened that way. There wasn't like a big political moment or anything. It was just very superficial in the beginning, but now it's very serious.
Siyasanga, I mean, you are sitting on the Johannesburg Junior Council. Did that kind of thing happen to you, where you saw people sitting in a big setting and you thought, oh, I want to be one of those?
No, it didn't really happen like that, actually. The council, for me, it was something so small within my school. Not many people knew it was going on. But the two people that were councillors before me were telling me about how amazing it is and how you meet such amazing people. And I was shocked. I was like, okay, maybe I should try it out, see these amazing people. And when you get there, the amount of energy and excitement that people have to help, it's actually mind-blowing.
But what do you get there and do? Because, I mean, if you look at the images that we see when young people get together, we get rowdy, we do all sorts of things. Even if we are called a council or whatever setup. What do you do when you get to the council?
Well, we usually have meetings where we have different committees within the JJC, and these committees basically, they have different facets where they help. There's environmental, there's contact, there's arts and culture. So it's all about promoting your committee with events and things like that. And with your events, you get money, and then your money usually goes towards a charity or some organization that you feel passionate about.
Do you talk about the issues that are challenging young people in South Africa today?
Definitely. We usually have speakers that come in to speak to us about, the new South Africa, what we're going to do as the youth, how we're going to move forward, driven, because there's that thing of pressure that people keep saying the new South African children need to be, going forward, changing South Africa. So we're trying to motivate each other within the council to try and do something about that.
Now, Spusiso, you're one of the 10 young visionaries for Google, and you've done some amazing work in the educational space. I want to chat to you when we come back after this short break, and we'll take your thoughts on that. Stay with us. Welcome back to Interface here on SABC3, talking tonight to 3 dynamic young people who are making waves and making a difference in their respective fields. Lwando Xaso is an associate at Norton Rose Attorneys. Spusiso Chabalala is a BCom student and one of 10 Google visionaries. And Siyasanga Gebeda is a pupil at St. Andrew's School for Girls and a member of the Joburg Junior Council. Spusiso, how does a BCom student at University of the Free State end up sitting at a function with Sir Richard Branson and the CEO of Google and all of that? How did that come about?
Yeah, I think it's a very tricky question. But I think the first thing is that I think I've been fortunate enough to be involved in a lot of things. And I use the word things because when I started off with some of these ideas and some of the initiatives, I was just in grade 9. And so initially, the spark of everything for me, I think the turning point, was a teacher of mine called Mrs. Aldevelman. And she was in the class and she challenged people to do something. She said, look, you guys don't care about anything. You guys are pathetic. You guys only, really worry about what it is that you want. So do something. And so our class started an organization called Dynamica 3099. And the 30 was significant. It was 30 learners who started in grade 9 who would finish off in 2009. And so we did some really cool stuff. Everything from youth initiatives. We did some work with the Cancer Association. I finished off, I went to university. And when I got to the University of the Free State, I was a bit inactive for a couple of months. And then I met a couple of people. One of the people I met was Nangam Sokoza, who had founded the Ngobela Foundation about 3 years ago. And she'd be doing some interesting stuff in the fields of education. And so I teamed up with her, and we sort of ran the organization. And she. But
what do you actually do in that organization that made you stand out like that?
So I'm a board of trustees on the organization, and so one of the many things that we sort of look at is the educational development of learners. Mm-hmm. So it ranged from everything from debating, public speaking, critical thinking. So it's certainly been a very. I think you can't point out something. But to me, there's sort of a lot of dots that need to be connected. And on the path, you meet a lot of people that inspire you to do more. You meet a lot of people that are doing more. And you feed off of that energy and that inspiration, I think.
You spoke earlier, Lwando, about how there isn't like a common enemy like we had under apartheid, where there was that one enemy that young people were all fighting against. Now there's all sorts of things happening and young people seem to have their minds in different places. How do you think we can get around that as a society, where we get the young people mobilized to fight the ills of our society today?
I think the easiest way to do that is through schools. I could just hear from Spusiso's story that teachers play such a big role, that if teachers bring that inspiration to school, and if students take part in what's going on in their schools and communities, I think it's so much easier to sort of mobilize them as a group and sort of do like inter-school projects and all sorts of things. And also television plays a big role, radio, and certain mediums that can be used to sort of, shift the focus to the right things.
But where you don't have that, where you don't have teachers that are as enthusiastic as what Spusiso had, what can young people do? I mean, what should they be doing at this stage if they're sitting at home and they're watching this and they're saying, I want to be on that panel one day?
I would say that you need to find your inspiration from the country itself. It's so easy to look up to people and want that inspiration, but I think it should also be your way of wanting something better for the country as a whole and not just for yourself to be sitting here. So I think you need to transform your society into what you want it to be, and that starts with transforming yourself. So instead of looking outside for inspiration, just say, okay, I want to do this, and when I do this, I want to spread it in this way, so you can contribute to other people's lives.
How do you think we can do that? How do we transform our society, Siyasanga? as a young person, how do you think we can tackle some of the ills that we have?
I genuinely think that with people inspiring us, we can move towards that. Because for me, I feel like there are certain people who come into your life and who talk to you about certain issues that make it known to you. Because most of the time, I don't think that you genuinely go out there to go look for a problem. You know, you go searching for it. But there's certain situations and circumstances that come to you and you think to yourself, wow, maybe I should do something to help, you know. Like with me, with the JJC, it wasn't one of those things where I was like, you know, oh, let me go find it. It sort of kind of came to me and I thought, wow, maybe there is something that I can do personally. Because sometimes you think in the bigger scheme of things that you can't personally do something to help.
You can't make a difference.
But when there's a togetherness, where there's somewhere that you can be, where people share the same goal and the same focus with you, then it's much easier to achieve.
So if you were looking at the political landscape in South Africa today and you had to identify 3 main priorities for the country, what would you say those priorities were?
I would definitely say education. Yeah, definitely. Healthcare, I think, would be one of them. And then poverty.
And those are 3 things that everybody, I think, would highlight. But we don't seem to have so clear ideas of how to tackle, for example, the education system in this country. We all moan about how it's not producing the right kind of graduates at the end of the day. But, you know, if you were to advise the education minister today,
that's a very
higher
difficult task.
education or basic education, you've been working in the education space. What would you say?
I don't think that we don't necessarily have ideas. I think a lot of people have ideas. I think the big problem in the country is that we spend too much time on the problems. And it makes sense because the problems are very, you know, they're direct and they're very harsh. I think what we need to do is we need to get all of these fragmented ideas together and make sense of it. Because what you often find is that, yes, there are serious problems. I mean, I think the insert showed us, you know, 2 brilliant young people doing something in their own communities. But such stories are not celebrated, right? So what you often see is the reflection of the problem, of the challenges, which is also good. I think there's 2 things that need to be done. I think one, young people need to create a platform where they can share their aspirations, their ideas, and say, look, this is where we want the country to be 10, 20, or 30 years from now. Because we have not done that. And so until we do that, complaining is just going to be a waste of time.
At school level, they've got the JJC and they've got other platforms like that. But, you know, what kind of platform do you think we should have at your level, at university level, to discuss this?
I think the first thing is the focus should not only be at university. I think we need to, you know, we need to go back to models where the community is actively involved. So, you know, something interesting that Yasanda mentioned is the lack of sort of mentorship, you know, positive people who can come up and say, look, this is how it is. We often look for, you know, the pop stars and the glam people in this country, and not the people that are actively making a difference, not the people that, you know, catch Sunday paper headlines. So I think that one of the many things we should do is go back to the communities, get people that are making a difference. I mean, I know a guy who's running a information literacy workshops across the certain part of Bloemfontein, Kevin Chingang. He did it without a computer initially when he started. I mean, he taught people, you know, about a computer without a computer, and he only had his laptop.
That's something.
So we need to take a look at the people in the communities that are doing the little, bring them together and say, where do we want the country to go? Because those are the ideas that will change the country, I think.
Young people are saying that we need to have clear role models in our respective fields. What are you doing to help South Africa? They're telling us what they're doing. And after the break, we'll continue chatting to them. Remember, if you want to join this discussion, send us your comments on our Facebook page, Interface on SABC3. Also, SMS us 33726. Don't go away. And this is the last segment of Interface this Sunday, talking about what young people are doing to make a difference. Let's take a quick look at your SMSs and some of your Facebook messages. Bitter fact about the revolution is that it always eats its own children, says Joe in Gauteng, but there is hope. And Hua from Lubua says, we are different with many differences, and we don't have a communal struggle in pockets of our society. And we also have one that comes from Meti, who says, I've had many young talents and many young people coming through my hands over the years, mostly students, and most of them are really great, young and motivated. And the last one comes from Wandile Ngeba, who is in the Eastern Cape, says, government must create jobs for young people and also stop using us to get votes. That's an interesting one because, you know, that's the image that and the idea that a lot of young people have, that, you know, government is only interested in them around voting time.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I didn't really think that was the case, actually. But with the ANC in particular, I mean, I think because of Julius Malema and all the controversy around that, I think people are more attracted to that and they gravitate towards that. But I've never felt that. I felt that there's this need to vote for the right party, the one that's going to take us even further than the ANC. But I haven't found that specific one that's going to I haven't been motivated to give that specific party my vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that young people in South Africa are apathetic, that you don't want to get involved in politics, you try and shy away from that?
I really don't think teenagers and young people of South Africa are like that, honestly. I feel like there's a perception of that with a minority of South Africa because of the flamboyantness of what they bring out to everybody else. But I think there are some quiet people, there are some people that are, under the cover that are actually doing something instead of out in the limelight showing that image to other people.
Okay. Lwando, your thoughts on this?
I do think we've come to a point where we have to stop asking what our government can do for us, but the old saying, what can we do for our country? And I think we have voices, and we don't have to wait for political parties to approach us. We can be active. And one of my passions is civic education. You can't begin to transform a society until you know how it's constituted. You have to know what the rule of law is, what the separation of powers are. You have to know what the Constitutional Court does. And that's why I'm so passionate about the Constitutional Court workshops that we do every Saturday. Jonathan Parsonage started them. And it's so amazing. You discover how young people think, and sometimes they teach us a lot.
But are young people getting involved with those workshops? Are they getting interested in that?
They are so excited. Literally, you think they're going to get there and think, oh, okay, I have to do this. But they actually want to be there. And we give them a whole history of the site, of where the court is, and we tell them a bit about the law and how it impacts their everyday lives. And I think once they leave the workshop, they can have mature debates amongst themselves, because they come in sort of shouting at each other and their ideas. And once they leave, they understand that, okay, I have to respect your opinion, wait for the person to finish, and okay, now I can talk. And I think once young people can talk to each other, communicate with each other properly, we can start building on that vision that we want.
Since you work so much with the Constitutional Court, I want to get your thoughts on this one. A lot of people say the Con Court has been compromised because of the various cases that it's been dealing with, and that, you can't really trust anything that comes from the Constitutional Court these days, because it depends on where the political wind is blowing.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Absolutely not true. And I can assure you that those people who say that have never read the judgments. I can also assure you, if you read the judgments, they're all well supported, and it will be very hard for you to say there's any outside influence. Having worked with the judges, and specifically my judge, and to see the process that they go through, and they treat every case separately. They don't go in there with a predetermined view. And I've also learned that you need to keep an open mind, which is what the judges do. Yes, before you get to court, you think you know what's going to happen, but you keep an open mind and you sort of take it from there. So there is no influence.
Just looking at the political landscape, are young people really as apathetic as what we hear? Not wanting to vote, not wanting to get involved?
Yeah. Well, I definitely don't think so. I think a lot of young people certainly do try and come up to the plate. I think the problem relates to more, sort of the illusion that we've created. I think the mere fact that we think that politics is the only space that young people can make a difference signals a huge problem in our country. This illusion just creates huge problems, because people get the perception that for Usbusiso or Thabo to make a difference, he has to be affiliated to a particular political party. And it's okay to be affiliated to any political party. But the most important thing that governs your participation in politics and your participation in the community is you being an active citizen. It's about valuing democracy. It's about valuing the fact that you've got a nation to build. And I think that's where we need to go. I think we need to emphasize that we need more active citizens, more than just sort of the bystanders that you get.
I like that you say that, and in closing, I'd like us to just touch on how we mobilize the youth. I mean, you've got 3 young minds here, all saying the same thing, that you've got to really get involved, but the question is how. What would you say we need to do in South Africa to get young people more involved and to get us doing more to contribute to our country?
I think we need to find a place where we need to find something that we're encouraged to work towards. So if you specifically feel passionate or you feel like the education system in South Africa is not going right, I'm sure there'll be someone who'd support you in trying to build people to gain awareness with it. I mean, the JJC is coming up with a march on June 16th for that. They are marching to Constitutional Hill for equal education. It's things like that where you get people involved. People must come and have a voice, you know, to march and show the people what they feel about the certain
Oh, I wish this was just an hour that we had to talk about this, but we've run out of time. Thank you so much for inspiring me and hopefully inspiring the nation to do something. And thank you for doing the wonderful work that you are doing in your respective fields. Thank you to my guests, Lwando Paso, Sibusiso Chabalala, and Siyasanga Kebeda. And that's how we come to the end of our program tonight. Remember that you can keep the conversation going on our Facebook page, Interface on SABC3. And also, if you want to catch us next week at the same time, do that. From me, Tembisa Mahele, and the team, good night.